The night changed the moment the knock came, soft at first, then heavier, like it was carrying the weight of a life that had finally run out of places to hide. I remember standing still in the dim hallway, heart racing, already knowing that whatever waited on the other side of that door would divide my life into before and after. Some requests don't sound dangerous when spoken, but they carry storms inside them, and that night, the storm had found my doorstep. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of being there for someone when the world turns its back on them, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles, because stories like this exist to remind us that small acts can change entire lives. I had known my best friend for more than a decade, long enough to recognize the silence in his breathing even before I opened the door. He stood there soaked by the rain, shoulders slumped, eyes carrying the kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. There was no drama in his posture, no anger, no visible tears, just a stillness that felt heavier than shouting ever could. When I stepped aside and let him in, the warmth of the room didn't reach him right away, as if the cold he carried came from somewhere much deeper than his clothes. Life had not been gentle with either of us, but we had grown up believing that if you worked hard, stayed honest, and looked after your own, things would somehow balance out. He had followed that belief more faithfully than anyone I knew. He built a life brick by brick, trusted people he loved, and dreamed quietly instead of loudly. Somewhere along the way, those dreams were used against him. A job he gave everything to disappeared overnight, a relationship he thought was permanent dissolved into blame and silence, and pride kept him from asking for help until there was nowhere left to go. That night, he didn't explain everything, and I didn't ask. The truth has a way of leaking out on its own when it's ready. I gave him a towel, a dry shirt, and the old couch I had been meaning to replace but never did. As I watched him sit there, hands folded, staring at the floor like it might open and swallow him whole, I felt an uncomfortable mix of loyalty and fear. Letting someone stay a night is easy. Letting their pain into your daily life is something else entirely. The days that followed were quiet in a way that felt unnatural. He woke up early and left the apartment before I did, even though he had nowhere specific to go. When I came home, he was already back, sitting near the window, watching the street below like he was counting the steps of strangers just to remind himself that the world was still moving. He tried to make himself small, to be invisible, as if existing too loudly might cost him the little shelter he had left. I started noticing how much effort it took for him to pretend he was fine. The way he flinched when his phone buzzed, the way he apologized for things that weren't his fault, the way he offered to leave almost every night even though neither of us said it out loud. I struggled too, wrestling with my own thoughts in the dark. I worried about money, about space, about how long compassion could survive when routines are disrupted. Kindness sounds noble until it asks for patience at inconvenient hours. One evening, after a long day that had drained me more than usual, I found him cleaning the kitchen with a focus that bordered on desperation. The sink was already spotless, but he kept scrubbing as if order might erase what chaos had done to his life. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just staying over. He was rebuilding himself quietly, piece by piece, and every small task was his way of proving he still had value. As weeks passed, fragments of his story emerged naturally. Not as dramatic confessions, but as tired truths slipping out between shared meals and late-night silences. Betrayals he never expected. Mistakes he took responsibility for even when they weren't his alone, and a loneliness that had grown louder than his pride. Listening to him changed something in me. I stopped seeing him as a guest and started seeing him as a mirror, reflecting how easily any of us could end up on the wrong side of stability. There were setbacks. Days when rejection emails piled up, when hope dipped so low it felt irresponsible to believe in it. Nights when he barely slept, pacing softly so he wouldn't wake me. I had moments of doubt too, moments when I wondered if opening my door had been naive. But every time that thought surfaced, it was followed by the memory of that first knock and the certainty that turning him away would have been a wound I'd carry forever. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. He started smiling again, not the polite kind, but the real ones that reached the eyes. A temporary job turned into a steady opportunity. The couch that once felt like a symbol of failure became a place of planning, of quiet confidence returning. Our apartment, once just a place to sleep, transformed into something warmer, filled with shared routines and unspoken understanding. The most powerful change wasn't in his circumstances, but in his posture. He stood straighter, spoke with more certainty, and stopped apologizing for existing. Watching him heal taught me that kindness isn't about saving someone. It's about giving them enough safety to remember how to save themselves. Eventually, the night came when he didn't need to ask to stay anymore. He packed his things carefully, not in a rush, not in shame, but with gratitude that didn't need words. When he left, the apartment felt quieter than it ever had, but it wasn't an empty quiet. It was the kind that lingers after something meaningful has passed through, leaving behind warmth instead of damage. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone who needed you or a time when you needed someone else, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories of kindness reach people who might need them more than they realize. Before this story ends, I have a special request for you. In the comments, write this exact line to spread the message further: kindness changes lives, even on the hardest nights. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is answering a door, and having the courage to say yes when someone asks if they can stay.